What is going on in today's video? I'm going to be talking about if you should be waiving home inspection and appraisals. Let's cue that beautiful intro, Bobby. What is going on, people? It is me, Chris Colgan with Keller. I don't even know why I just did that, because I've been getting some comments that I move my hands too much, but you know what? Whatever, it's too fun. You know what I mean, guys? What am I gonna do here? I'm sitting here talking. I get excited about real estate, and you guys know you all come up to me and talk to me about real estate everywhere I go. I was in the dry cleaners. The dry cleaners asked me about it. I was at a funeral. Somebody asked me about it. All good. I love it. And the one thing that you guys keep asking me, Chris, besides are you single? A lot of people ask me that. Chris, is it true people are going around waiving appraisals and home inspections? If so, that is insane. And what I say is, yes, they are. So let's talk about it, my thoughts, what I think about it. Before we dive into that, let me just give you a little bit of disclaimer here. A lot of people across the country watch me, as I am Mr. Worldwide, not Pitbull myself. I am, everyone knows me. No, they don't. But let me give you a little quick disclaimer. That's why you really do need a professional real estate agent like myself. Because the thing is, if you don't know this type of stuff, or like what type of inspections are very common in your marketplace, you could get yourself in a ton of trouble. Like, I would have no idea in Texas or New York what type of inspections are common, but like here in Virginia, we have a thing that's very common called radon gas. And I'm not gonna sit here and bore you to death with radon gas, you can Google it. But people should get a radon gas test. That's something that is common here. And also sometimes it's common to have a house with a well and septic test. So you really do need somebody that knows these type of things, that is a professional. So that is just one little quick disclaimer I want to give you guys about that. So make sure in your marketplace you talk to your agent about this stuff that I'm talking about here. But let's just dive right into it, right? So right now we know the market is on fire. There's really not much of a signs of a slowdown. I will say here in Northern Virginia, when they lifted all the restrictions from the virus and people started getting back out, there's high school graduations, I've noticed a slowdown and decrease in showings. The National Association of Realtors just said the amount of listings that were on the market went up 5%. So that does mean that the market is probably doing somewhat of a slowdown, just a little bit, but there's still a lack of inventory. But let's talk about this waiving inspections, waiving appraisals, why you would or why you wouldn't want to do that. So basically, I mean, let's just be honest, right? Like, if you're looking at a house and there's 10 offers, and I always tell my buyers, look at things like you are the home seller, right? Like, what offer are you going to gravitate towards? Like, what are you going to want to take? So if you get, say your house listed for $400,000 and you get 3 offers for $415,000, and one has no inspection, one has inspection and appraisal, and then one has no inspection, no appraisal, you're gonna go with the one with no inspection or no appraisal, right? So that is the obvious reason why you would wanna waive it. But let's talk about the cons to doing that, right? If you get, especially here in Virginia, a home inspection, we have 2 options on our contract. We can say, well, technically 3. We can say no inspections. We can say we're gonna do a home inspection, but we want the option to ask the seller to make repairs or give a credit. Or we want to do an inspection and we want the option to just walk away and void the contract within 7 days or whatever. I always pretty much recommend my sellers do an inspection. I pretty much always recommend my home buyers do an inspection because, you know what, most realtors, we're not professional contractors or inspectors, so you need a licensed home inspector to come out, look at the property, especially around here. We got the HVACs, we got such drastic weather changes here. We have roofs that take a lot of damage. There's a lot of things, electrical work. There's a lot of things that you just don't know about. So that's the dangerous thing about waiving an inspection, right? And the big thing is too, I think the biggest misconception is a lot of these shows like HGTV and $1 Million Listing really kind of screwed up what people think, because when you're doing a home inspection, remember, this isn't for you to go in and try to get cosmetic repairs done. It's only basically to make sure there isn't something seriously wrong with the house. What would be a reason that you'd want to bail, right? Well, let's talk about that. If the seller went and finished the basement and never pulled any permits. Well, you don't know if the person that finished it did it up to fire code, or they didn't ever filed it to code with the county, and one day the county shows up and condemns the house because they had no clue the basement was finished. That's something that I've seen a common, and I always tell the sellers, look, you got to disclose that. Like, you can't just walk around and say, like, you can't not tell people there's no permits on that. So you got to have an inspector check that out. Or, you know, you get somebody that watches YouTube, not to say watching YouTube is a bad thing, and they say, oh yeah, I'm just gonna fix this electrical work by myself, and they're not a licensed electrician, and the house is about ready to burn down. So there's like things like that you can especially, you know, catch, that an inspector would catch it. You couldn't just look at a house and tell, right? But the other flip side of it is, if you're writing an offer on a high-rise condo, and there's 10 offers, and you know, okay, well, you're looking at it and the HVAC is brand new and you're only responsible for the inside of the house, there's really not much an inspector can look at or do. You know, you can look at the appliances and all that and tell if they're good or not. And you can also purchase a warranty every year for about $550, which covers a lot of things that could go wrong with the house. So that would be, like, to me, is like the biggest risk, right? Like, and that's something that, as you as like a home buyer, like, that needs to be your personal choice, whether you want an inspection or not. Like, some people I work with, they know everything about houses. They know how to work on them. They're contractors. Their dad's a contractor. Now, real quick, I'm gonna get on a tangent for a second. When you go to buy a house, the worst thing you can do, and everyone's gonna get mad at me, but is invite your parents to the inspection. So yeah, like, I've been on these inspections before, and you know, the dad shows up and he's like, well, what about this? And what about that? And what about this? And I said, sir, oh, okay. Are you in housing? No, I work down at IT for Amazon. What the heck do you know about houses? No offense out there, dads. But the thing is, like, and I know my dad would do it too, and I'll probably do it too if I ever find a girlfriend and get like a kid one day. But the thing is, right, like, that is the other thing, is like, you want that licensed, like, third party there, not your second cousin's brother who is a contractor by night to show up and point everything wrong with the house. If you walked in my house, I would probably pass out by the things that people would point out that I didn't know about. So, like, you want someone in there that's just gonna find, like, general things that could screw you up down the road. So a home inspection isn't a thing to go out and get paint done or anything like that. Like, you gotta be really reasonable with that stuff. It is not common here and where I'm at, Northern Virginia, for you to say, I want you to fix this, and that. It just doesn't happen. It's only for major repairs. So with that being said, again, it's just a personal preference. Do I recommend people get them? Of course I do. I'm never gonna not say not get an inspection. Now let's talk about appraisals, because that is a totally different scenario, because the issue is, with an appraisal, it's really up to the person that's really in charge is your lender. And they are not gonna just go about lending money out if this house does not appraise, right? So let's say the house is $500,000 and you offer $525, and you say, I waive the appraisal, and then the appraisal comes back at $500, you've basically said at that point, I'm coming up with that $25,000 in cash to make up the difference to the lender, because they're not gonna loan on that $525. They're being told by a licensed appraiser it's only worth $500. So, and appraisers, they're not like they were in the mid-2000s, where you could just go pick up an appraiser off the side of the street and say, come appraise this house. Like, a computer randomly generates an appraiser to come out, and they really go through the comps and everything to make sure it's priced right. So that is like the thing, is like, you've got to make sure you're in a financial position that you can actually waive the appraisal. And so people all the time will say to me, hey Chris, like, I want to write this offer, let's waive the appraisal. And I'll say to them, hold on a second. You need to call your lender, because a lot of times us realtors, we don't know much about your financial situation. But I'll say you need to call your lender and make sure that if this house does not appraise, you're in a good position financially where you can take money and make up that difference, because you've told the seller in writing, hey, I'm not doing an appraisal. So they're thinking in the back of their mind, oh, wait a minute, that's great. Like, we don't have to worry about the appraisal. And so that is like the most dangerous thing with it, you know, like, and you can imagine there, like, I have seen some scenarios where people have waived appraisals, everything's been fine, they go through it, and I've seen some where they waived it and the appraisal came in really low, and then they're like, oh crap, but they had the money to cover it, because luckily, like, just being in the business for so long, I was able to sit down with them and say, hey, look, when you write the offer, do you have the money to cover it? And I'll show them some comparables in case it does not appraise at this number. And so this happened recently, really quick. I'll tell you a quick story where I was representing a seller, and the buyer didn't waive the appraisal, which was fine. And the appraisal came in low, and the comps were there to justify the house selling. There was comps higher than what I had got than what we had sold for. And I challenged the appraiser on it, and I submitted like a challenge request. And I think there was like a $20,000 spread, and I got the appraiser to come up like 10 grand, and that was it. And I was like, dude, there's comps here that show. And the appraiser was like, sorry, like I don't see it, what you're seeing. And so the seller like eventually just made the decision, I'm gonna take that hit. And they had to move on. They moved on and sold the property. So like, again, you get some wacky appraiser that, you know, just under appraises it for whatever reason. So that is like kind of one of those things, you know, again, as a professional, I am never not going to say, oh yeah, definitely waive the appraisal. What I will say is, look, there's 15 offers on this house. We all know some wacky woman, whatever, is going to come out and waive an appraisal. So that's going to be something the seller's going to have to think about, you know, and that is going to be an option that you really need to think about, is put yourself in the shoes of the seller and say, am I going to want an offer with no appraisal or with an appraisal, you know? And one thing you could do is always maybe make a stronger offer, like higher price, and know that appraisal will be there to, you know, one thing you can always do is make a higher offer with the appraisal, and you have that appraisal as a safety net, but don't rely on that and be upset if the house actually comes back and appraises at that higher number. And I've had clients be like, what? It actually appraised? And they're upset. And I'm like, yeah, what do you mean? That's a good thing. Like, no, I didn't think I was going to pay that much. I'm like, well, now you tell me, but we got to move forward. You signed a contract. So that is like one of those things that, again, like you really need a professional. Like if you live in Virginia or anywhere in the country, I can help you. I can refer you to any agent. I have a network of agents that I refer people to. If you're in the Northern Virginia area or Fredericksburg area, wherever, I can definitely help you out as well. So definitely comment below with questions about that. There's other subjects that I can dive into, like should you do like an escalation clause? Should you waive this? Should you waive that? But at the end of the day, it's personal preference, but it is very common right now, and I think it's not going away anytime soon. So I'd love to know what else you guys want to hear on these videos, want me to talk about. I will continue to use my hands with full force and powerful might that I have in these videos. If you want to comment that I use my hands too much, that's fine, all good. It takes a lot to get me offended. I've been in sales my whole life. So as always, I will see you at the top, or from the top. We're going back out and selling. Bobby, let's go. Get out of here.